Hello, my name is Arkelia Todd, and the purpose of this video is to foster health and stability for the individual and stability for the dating relationship. The content will be taken from the book Date Smart, Dating Lessons for All the Single Ladies. This is a video series detailing each chapter of the book along with the workbook. Feel free to listen to the assessment questions, answer them for yourself before continuing on with the lesson, and share the lesson with your family, friends, mate, Sunday school class, and small group. This week we will be studying from chapter number 4, Charles, part 2. Question number 1. What qualifies you to be competent to date? As an air traffic controller, my main job is to keep aircraft flying at a safe distance. A pilot may fly visual without the need for air traffic control assistance. On the other hand, when the pilot wants to fly higher and at an altitude with faster jets, the first prerequisite to ascertain is, are you qualified and capable of instrument flight? In essence, does he have what it takes to accomplish his desired mission? Like any occupation, there are skills and training requirements to keep you and others safe. Training is needed in order to accomplish a thorough job. Similarly, what is often missing in dating is the necessary knowledge that will keep you whole, loved, and respected. The right training protects God's daughters from dating dishonesty. Loving yourself means looking out for your well-being, your health, and your peace of mind. Similar to the way a computer is protected from viruses with firewall programs and your body is protected from disease by ingesting vitamins, biblical wisdom protects your mental health and heart from predators. You must guard your valuable software and hardware. Computer viruses are out there. What a computer owner usually does is she takes responsibility for the security of her cherished contents on her computer. In the same way, being mentally fit for dating protects your physical and mental health. Are you capable and qualified to date and not get beat up by the games? Question number 1. What qualifies you to be competent to date? Biblical wisdom is needed to protect an individual from predators. Biblical wisdom makes one mentally fit for relationships. Question number 2. As stated in this chapter, what can an individual do instead of run from conflict? Spiritual wisdom makes you strong. You may consider returning to a relationship of the past because he is familiar. You may be at a season when you aren't dating anyone and contemplate reconnecting with an old flame. When should you go back and when should you move forward? Every relationship happened and ended for a reason. You must first accept people, situations, and circumstances and events as they are. You can wish for things in the future to be different, but in each relationship, accept incidents as they happened. And when you can accept occurrences as they are, you are ready to take responsibility for your situation and for all the events you see as problems. One way to guard yourself is by evaluating your past relationships and their complications in an attempt to avoid repeating those mistakes and learn from them. During my time of reflection, I considered my previous relationship with my ex-boyfriend, Charles. My biggest issue with Charles was our lack of communication. I had issues with him and told everybody but him what bothered me. I would get mad and put distance between us because he wasn't doing what I thought he should without telling him my concerns. I would disconnect instead of confront. Even when I didn't physically leave the relationship, I mentally withdrew, seldom discussing the problems I had with him. In essence, by not voicing my concerns about his behavior, I was condoning his actions by not telling him I had a problem. Instead of running from conflict, we must learn to ask questions. Asking questions allows you to get to the bottom of the issue at hand. Asking the right questions can bring understanding and allow you to be informed. 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 1 through 3 teaches, when the queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon and his relationship to the Lord. She came to test Solomon with hard questions. Arriving at Jerusalem with a great caravan with camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold and precious stones, she came to Solomon and talked with him about all that she had on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. Like the Queen of Sheba, who asked King Solomon every question on her heart, you would do good to ask your mate questions that will resolve your concerns. Instead of running from conflict, ask questions. Learning from the example the Queen of Sheba had set, I decided to do better with opening up. I would be honest with my feelings and ask questions to find the underlying cause of an issue. I wanted to get to the point where I could have a civil and cordial connection with Charles, even if God said he was not to be my husband. Question number 2. As stated in this chapter, what can an individual do instead of run from conflict? Ask your mate questions to get an understanding of his thinking and behavior. Question number 3. How can you protect yourself from someone's disregard? Eventually, I got a chance to put the Queen of Sheba's teaching into action. One day, I had jury duty in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. As I was trying to find the parking lot, I ran across a biking trail that looked familiar, fairly new and safe. Because I knew Charles liked to ride his bike, I sent him a text informing him about the trail. My motives were twofold. He could get in touch with me, or he could take someone else. God's will be done. I would be just fine with his choice. However, I do enjoy riding my bike. He responded with a text asking if I would go with him sometime. I texted him back that a ride together would be fine. About a week later, I sent this text. Why do you mention bike riding but don't follow through with making plans? Just curious. Like the Queen of Sheba, are you able to calmly ask questions to get to the heart of what is bothering you? When you ask the questions that are on your heart, remember you are a queen while questioning. Question without becoming argumentative or confrontational. Your behavior should show that you are God's daughter, not hostile. Instead, distinguished. Charles called and explained his bike was in the shop. I was happy with myself because I had finally confronted an issue with him. Keeping my question inside would have only caused frustration and stress to build. Questioning his irritating behavior was a pressure reliever. Question number 3. How can you protect yourself from someone's disregard? Question irritating behavior to relieve pressure. Ask, why do you act that way? Why do you think that's okay? Ask your date to call you the day of the event to verify plans. Question number 4. What is the advantage of asking your mate a question about his behavior that frustrates you? Conflict is going to happen in every relationship. One way to overcome conflict is to ask questions to get clarity. Asking a man why he does a certain thing allows you to get an understanding. We learn from 1 Kings chapter 1 verse 6, the problem with King David's son Adonijah was King David never asked Adonijah why he behaved as he did. That passage teaches us to ask, why do you behave as you do? To mention an excursion but not follow through could be an action that Charles does without realizing that he doesn't follow through. It could very well be because no one has questioned his behavior by asking why. Why do you do that? A person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. Assuming that he should know better wasn't fair to him. I decided to communicate instead of making assumptions. The change starts with me. 1 Kings chapter 1 verse 5 through 6 reads, Now Adonijah, whose mother was Hagar, put himself forward and said, I will be king. He got chariots and horses ready with 50 men to run ahead of him. His father had never rebuked him by asking, why do you behave as you do? He was also very handsome and was born next to Absalom. Often a man has not been asked this simple but challenging question. We should learn from David's mistake in asking man why he behaves the way he does. The advancement you want to see in your relationship starts with you. For example, asking Charles the question allowed me to gain an understanding. Before the connection was over, Charles asked if we could meet for dinner that following Monday. I agreed to meet him. I requested he give me a call that Monday to let me know whether our plans were still on, because I recalled how he would suggest plans and not show up. I knew it was up to me to initiate the change I wanted to see. He said that he would. I was so proud of myself for asking him to get in touch prior to dinner. The new creature was protecting herself from Charles's disregard. When I dated Charles, I didn't ask him to verify our plans, even though he might or might not show up. I decided to take my destiny into my own hands. If he didn't call by a particular time, I would make alternate plans and not live in frustration, waiting on him. It was just that simple. Question number 4. What is the advantage of asking your mate a question about his behavior that frustrates you? Asking questions help bring clarity and protects oneself from another's disregard. Question number 5. If God allows you to have a mate, will you put your mate before God? What will you do to make sure that doesn't happen? It was ironic, but Charles sent a text Sunday, "Are we still having dinner tomorrow?" Now, mind you, in the 2.5 years we dated, he never put that much effort into making sure our plans were secure. When you want progression in your relationship, you must put in place the best practices you want to see. The evolution starts with you. It is important to have a healthy support system of encouragement in your corner. About an hour before the time to meet, I almost called the dinner off. I remember the pain I had gone through dating him before. I remember how repeatedly his actions would break my heart. I was having thoughts of self-preservation. Why put myself through that pain again? I recall all the books I had read trying to get my courage up to meet him, but nothing worked. Then I got a call from a girlfriend, Asia. I let her know I was feeling anxious. She said I was giving Charles too much power. She reminded me I was the prize. That encouragement was all I needed to face my fear. I had a new attitude when I left my apartment that said, I am the prize. The new creature would not allow the man to be everything to her. I met Charles at a restaurant for dinner. As we were standing in the foyer, I intentionally took in the full view of my surroundings. I was purposeful to survey the ambiance. He was not the only thing that captured my attention. He grabbed me, gave me a big hug, and asked what I was looking at. I told him I had never been to that restaurant and was taking in the decor. He wasn't accustomed to sharing my attention. That was new for him and for me. Dividing my attention was important because in the past I had made this man my God. I was mindful not to do that again. When your companion opens up about a subject, feel free to ask questions that allow you to get to know him better. Feel free to ask questions which allow him to tell more about himself and share his story. On the other hand, if you do not inquire, your understanding of your companion may be limited. Questions fuel the conversation and allow for intimacy. As Abraham was willing to sacrifice Isaac, we must be willing to sacrifice those important relationships in our lives to show God He comes first. Genesis chapter 22. 2 weeks after our dinner, Charles called and asked if I was busy the following Thursday. I expressed I had plans. He stated he was asking because he wanted to go bike riding whenever I was available. I suggested he give me a call and let me know when he wanted to try again. He vowed he would. What was huge about this conversation was the fact that I told Charles I had plans. In the past, I would have dropped whatever I was doing to be with him. However, I didn't want to go back to those miserable practices of making a man my God. I was putting in place what I had learned, which consisted of telling Charles that I had plans. Huge. It is good for a lady to stick to her schedule and not be available to a man's every beck and call. How is it that a woman can tell God no to spending time with him quite often, but unable to tell a man no? Question number 5. If God allows you to have a mate, will you put your mate before God? What will you do to make sure that doesn't happen? Refrain from letting a man be everything to you. Be purposeful to not turn your companion into an idol. Question number 6. Why is having your own life's purpose and activities important? When you consider returning to a past love, consider whether he brought anything positive into your life. One day, while at the gym, I locked my keys in my car. I recall how Charles convinced me to keep an extra set at my apartment. I walked home, got the maintenance personnel to let me in, and got the extra set. As I rode my bike back to the gym, I felt grateful for Charles's guidance. He made my life better in some ways, and I missed that. I sent him a text and thanked him for his suggestion. During our text, we decided to go bike riding on Thursday. We were having a stroll down memory lane when things were nice, fun, and exciting between us. I missed those days. Those days were peaceful and full of laughter. Could we get back to peaceful times? I hope so. It is good to be a lady with a life. A lady who has a full life is very attractive because she is not desperate for a man's presence. I got a call from Charles about 8:15 p.m. He asked how I was doing, and I told him He asked how I was doing and told me he was just getting in from playing basketball. He wanted to know if I had gone bike riding. I responded when I texted him I was on my bike. My plan to enjoy the beautiful day riding was not contingent on him. I took my desire to bike ride into my own hands and didn't wait on him. The new creature was making her life golden. Unlike in the past, Charles could add to my quality of life, but my fullness was not dependent on him. Now that's true beauty. It is up to you to make your life golden, regardless of whether you are dating. Question number 6. Why is having your own life, purpose, and activities important? When you have a life and activities, you aren't waiting and relying on someone to give you a life and something to do. You take care of that concern for yourself. Question number 7. Why should an individual mentally revisit past relationships? An unimposing lady allows a man to invite, instead of inviting herself. For example, Charles called and asked what I had going on Friday. He mentioned he had some friends coming into town and they were going boating. I listened. Then he mentioned I had to work. He knew I had to work when he asked. Nevertheless, you see what I did? I waited. The Bible instructs, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. James chapter 1, verse 19, King James Version. Charles never asked me to go with him. He just mentioned his plans. I had seen this behavior in the past. Charles was dangling a carrot which said, chase after spending time with me. You know you want me. With self-control, I was able to restrain myself from chasing the boating carrot. I wanted to go, but I would let the man be the man and invite me if he chose. I would resist doing what I wanted to do. I did not take the bait. Why did he ask what I was doing if he knew I had to work? Did he want me to respond, oh, I'll call in sick or take leave to be with you. I will do whatever it takes. But before God's wisdom, I had put everything and everyone on hold to be with this man. However, that was the old me. Charles was dealing with a new creature. Old things had passed away. All things had become brand new. A lady of noble character is not tied to being with a man. For example, after some silence in the conversation, I said, call me Wednesday about going bike riding on Thursday just to make sure nothing has come up. I have penciled you in. He mentioned he didn't like being penciled in. I assured him life happens for him and for me. Then I got off the phone. Before he would pencil me in and I would try to tie him down to plans, this new being learned life goes on without Charles. If he doesn't come through, I won't be devastated. If he doesn't call by Wednesday, I would make alternate plans. I was finally in control of what happened to me. After that conversation, I told myself, you go girl. I learned to celebrate the small victories. One big lesson that I noted was that before, when I was trying to pin him down, he would look for an out. He would often tell me he would let me know the answer to my proposed plans later. Rarely did he give me a definite answer. Now, when a sister was giving us both an out by telling him I was penciling him in, he wanted to pin me down. I had flipped the script, and it was a beautiful thing to behold. If you pay attention, a man will teach you the techniques to use in dating. Follow his lead and use his techniques. Revisiting past relationships allows for self-evaluation, which shows you where you can make better choices. For example, there were issues I needed to face instead of running. And issues like when I dated Charles, I called him to let him know where I was and what I was doing at practically every moment, as if we were married. I never considered that familiarity breeds contempt. I never let him miss me or go without knowing where I was. There was no room for longing because I was either with him or talking to him. Even God has mystery about himself. I learned from my father to allow for a degree of mystery. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 9. Before you return to a past relationship, consider why you left. Traveling down memory lane, I recall Charles would disappear instead of communicate his issue. A man may discontinue communicating when you confront him over a concern. There may be fallout to you questioning his actions. Often people do not appreciate being held accountable. It's okay if he gets upset. Be okay with his silence. Trust God and remember what God has for you is for you. If after your questions he disappears, let your companion have his space. Don't lose your mind. Sometimes the people with the biggest egos need the most help in seeing their shortcomings. I knew Charles was in my life for a reason. One of those reasons was so each of us could mature. The reason you revisit past relationships and rework your thinking is to alleviate the same misery and heartache in your future relationships. Learn the lessons from the past and be a happier person. I had dated my way, and now I needed God and His will. Fred Hammond says it's best when he sings, "Total chaos when I'm led by me. So my mind is made up and I'm willing to follow you." I was now allergic to chaos, so I chose to follow God. Question number 7. Why should an individual mentally revisit past relationships? You mentally revisit past relationships to determine how you will now positively handle a situation that didn't work out for you in the past. Revisit in order to grow and get better. Question number 8. Who is responsible for making your life full? How much fullness do you have? Sometimes we have endured relationship injury and are in need of major rehabilitation. When injured in a relationship, get help from Dr. Jesus. There is no waiting room, no copay. He is ready to see you immediately. He will heal you in the comfort of your own home. He will put strength and wisdom in you that you didn't have before. Take the needed time to heal before dating again. Recall the knowledge God shares and use it in a productive way once you head into the dating arena. This is why I love God, because He equips us and makes us wiser. If you want to get better, you must participate in your healing and growth. Godly wisdom helps you cope. It was Monday, and Charles had not called since Wednesday night when he asked about bike riding. I felt he would perform the disappearing act where I wouldn't hear from him for a couple of days. However, God had given me insight to this behavior. Charles' disappearance used to get me to go chasing after the chance to reconnect with him. I could choose to hound him, or I could choose to live my life to the fullest with him missing in action. I chose to abandon the chase and live life to the fullest. As a result, I purchased a ticket to the